Ancient mysteries whisper to us from the shadows of time. History is so much more than a list of dates and facts. It is a collection of eerie tales and unexplained events that still send a chill down our spine today. We are about to journey through 35 of the most haunting ancient legends from cultures across the globe. You will discover the truth behind cursed tombs, lost cities, and spectral creatures that have defied explanation for centuries. What really happened to the vanished Roanoke colony, and could a mythical fountain hold the secret to eternal youth? Which legendary creature or mystery sends the deepest shiver down your own spine? The dust of 3,000 years settled in the air as Howard Carter broke the seal on King Tutankhamun's tomb. That moment in 1922 was supposed to be the pinnacle of archaeological discovery, but it soon twisted into a source of global dread. The untimely death of the expedition's financial backer, Lord Carnarvon, just months after entering the burial chamber, ignited a media frenzy. Newspapers across the world breathlessly reported on a mummy's curse, a supernatural revenge for disturbing the boy king's eternal slumber. This was not merely a journalistic invention, however. The ancient Egyptians did inscribe warnings on tomb walls. These curses were not about theatrical revenge but sacred protection. They were meant to guard the delicate journey of the spirit into the afterlife, a process that could be disrupted by greedy or disrespectful intruders. So when other individuals connected to the excavation began to die under strange circumstances, the legend of the Pharaohs' curse seemed chillingly confirmed. Modern science offers its own prosaic, yet equally fascinating explanations. Researchers have suggested that sealed tombs could have cultivated dangerous levels of toxic mold or ancient bacteria. After being trapped for millennia, these pathogens might have been unleashed when the tomb was opened, acting as a biological booby trap. Yet, even with these rational theories, the curse endures. It taps into a deeper, more primal fear, the idea that some secrets are meant to stay buried, and that the past has a long, cold memory. While the curse of a single tomb haunted Egypt, an entire civilization's disappearance has captivated the world for millennia. The story of Atlantis begins not with an archaeologist's shovel, but with the pen of the Greek philosopher Plato over 2,000 years ago. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, he describes a formidable naval power that existed 9,000 years before his own time. This was not just any kingdom, it was an utopian society of immense wealth and advanced technology, possessing a wisdom that put the ancient world to shame. Yet its people grew arrogant and corrupt, and the gods punished their hubris. In a single day and night of misfortune, the entire island was swallowed by the sea, vanishing without a trace. Plato presented this story as a moral parable, a cautionary tale about the dangers of imperial overreach and moral decay. But was it only a story? His detailed descriptions of the city's concentric rings of water and land, its magnificent temples, and its strategic location beyond the Pillars of Hercules have fueled an endless quest for a real, physical location. This search has spanned the globe, with theorists placing the lost continent everywhere from the sunken island of Santorini in the Mediterranean to the depths of the Caribbean Sea, and even to the marshlands of southern Spain. Each new theory spawns fresh expeditions armed with sonar and satellite imagery, yet all have returned without the one piece of evidence that would silence all doubt. The enduring power of Atlantis lies not in its potential reality, but in the profound fear it represents. It is the ultimate ghost story of a society, a chilling reminder that no matter how grand our cities or how advanced our knowledge, the ocean of time can still rise up. It forces us to ask a haunting question about our own world. Could the fate of our civilization one day become nothing more than a legend for future generations to puzzle over? The same human hunger that drove explorers to seek lost continents also fueled a more tangible, glittering obsession. Far from the Mediterranean, in the highlands of what is now Colombia, a very different kind of legend was born. It did not begin as a city, but as a man. The Muisca people performed a magnificent ceremony for a new chief. They would cover his body entirely in gold dust, transforming him into a living, breathing golden idol. He would then be taken to Lake Guatavita on a raft piled high with gold and emeralds. As the raft reached the center, he would plunge into the sacred waters, washing the gold from his skin as an offering to the gods. This was El Dorado, the Golden One, a sacred ritual of power and sacrifice. When Spanish conquistadors heard fragments of this story, their minds did not see a spiritual leader, they saw a mountain of treasure. Their greed twisted a single man's transformation into the vision of an entire city paved with gold, a place of unimaginable wealth hidden deep in the uncharted jungles of South America. This distorted dream launched a centuries-long bloodbath. Countless expeditions from Francisco de Orellana to Sir Walter Raleigh marched into the green hell of the Amazon basin, driven mad by the promise of riches. They faced disease, starvation, and hostile tribes, leaving trails of graves and shattered lives in their wake. The quest for El Dorado was not just a treasure hunt, it was a primary engine for the brutal exploration and colonization of an entire continent, redrawing maps with a trail of greed and violence. The haunting power of this legend is not about a city that was never found, but about the destructive force of an idea. It is a stark mirror held up to the darkest parts of human nature, our capacity for self-destruction in the pursuit of a paradise that was never there to begin with. While conquistadors scoured the continent for cities of gold, a different, more intimate dream lured them to its shores. The legend of the Fountain of Youth speaks not to greed for wealth, but to a universal fear, the slow, inevitable decay of our own bodies. Its origins are rooted in the oral traditions of the Arawak people of the Caribbean, who spoke of a mystical, life-giving spring. When Spanish explorers like Juan Ponce de Leon heard these tales in the early 1500s, they were not listening as anthropologists, they were desperate men in a harsh new world, and they interpreted the stories literally. For Ponce de Leon, already a seasoned and aging veteran of the New World, the promise was irresistible. He received a royal charter to seek out the island of Bimini, and in 1513 he landed on a lush coastline he named La Florida, driven by the belief that the miraculous waters were there waiting to restore his youth. Of course, he found no such spring, only swamps, hostile natives, and his own mortality, eventually dying from a poisoned arrow wound. The haunting power of this legend is not in its reality, but in the profound human longing it represents. It is the ultimate fantasy of a reset button for life, a chance to wash away the years and start anew. This is not a quest that ended with the age of exploration. That same desperate hope echoes in every anti-aging cream, every fitness fad, and every cutting-edge scientific lab searching for the secrets of cellular regeneration. The Fountain of Youth was never a place on a map. It is a mirror reflecting our deepest anxiety about time's passage and our own fragile existence. It asks a question that still haunts us: what would we give and where would we go for just one more taste of youth? From the jungles of eternal youth, we move to a stretch of ocean where time itself seems to unravel. The Bermuda Triangle, a loosely defined region in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean, has become a modern graveyard for the imagination. Its legend is built not on ancient texts but on shipping lanes and flight paths, where vessels and aircraft have seemingly evaporated from existence. The mystery truly captured the world's attention in 1945 with the chilling and still unexplained disappearance of Flight 19. This was a routine training mission of 5 United States Navy Avenger bombers. The seasoned flight leader was heard over the radio reporting that his compasses had gone haywire, that he could not be sure of any direction. His final, frantic words described entering white water, and that everything looked strange, even the ocean, before all contact was lost. A massive search and rescue plane sent to find them also vanished without a single distress call. Then there was the colossal USS Cyclops, a 500-foot-long Navy cargo ship with 309 souls on board. It sailed into calm weather in March 1918 and was never seen or heard from again, leaving no wreckage, no lifeboats, and not one body. It remains the single largest non-combat loss of life in the history of the United States Navy. With no clear answers, the human mind rushes to fill the void with spectacular theories. Some point to alien abductions, suggesting the area is a hidden gateway for otherworldly visitors. Others, remembering the legend of Atlantis, propose that powerful, leftover technology from the sunken city lies dormant on the seabed, occasionally activating to disrupt the world above. There are even tales of strange, glowing fogs and sudden, violent vortices that swallow ships whole. Science, however, offers its own compelling, if less cinematic, explanations. The ocean floor here is known to be rich in methane hydrates. A sudden, large-scale eruption of this trapped gas could theoretically bubble up to the surface, drastically reducing the density of the water and causing a ship to lose buoyancy and sink in moments. The region is also a notorious breeding ground for rogue waves, solitary walls of water that can reach staggering heights and easily overwhelm even large vessels. Add to this the fact that the Bermuda Triangle is one of the few places on Earth where true north and magnetic north align, potentially causing navigational confusion for unprepared pilots and captains, and you have a perfect storm of natural hazards. Yet the legend endures, outliving every rational explanation. Its true power lies in its location. This is not some remote, uncharted sea, but a heavily traveled corridor of the modern world. The triangle takes the familiar, the comforting certainty of a map and a compass, and reveals it to be an illusion. It transforms the blue water and open sky, symbols of freedom and exploration, into a theater of primal fear, forcing us to admit that some of the greatest mysteries are not hidden in lost tombs, but are waiting for us just over the horizon, in the places we think we know best. 3 years is a long time to wait for an answer that never comes. When a supply ship finally reached the shores of Roanoke Island in 1590, the English colonists had simply ceased to exist. More than 100 men, women, and children, including the first English child born in the New World, a baby girl named Virginia Dare, were gone. The settlement was dismantled not by force but with an eerie, deliberate order. The only message left for them was a single word carved into a wooden post, Croatoan, and another unfinished carving of the letters CRO on a nearby tree. There were no crosses, the prearranged signal for distress. There were no graves, no signs of a struggle, just the wind whispering through empty cabins. It was as if the entire community had been quietly absorbed by the vast, unknown American wilderness. The leading theory, then and now, is that the word was a destination. The Croatoan people were a friendly Native American tribe living on a nearby island, now known as Hatteras. Facing starvation and isolation, the colonists may have made the logical choice to seek shelter and integrate with their neighbors. Later reports from English explorers did mention encounters with light-skinned Native Americans, and even some who spoke English or lived in European-style houses. But if this integration happened, it was complete and total. No English colonist ever stepped forward to tell their story. The other possibilities are far darker. Perhaps the colony was wiped out by disease, a silent killer that left no one to bury the dead. Or maybe they faced a violent attack from a hostile tribe or the Spanish, who saw the English settlement as a threat. Yet, the lack of any evidence for a battle makes this theory feel hollow. The true haunting element of Roanoke is not a ghost or a monster, but a profound and absolute silence. It is the story of a community that wrote its final chapter in a single, cryptic word, and then vanished from the pages of history, leaving behind a question that has echoed for centuries. What does it feel like to be so completely forgotten? A polished piece of quartz can feel cool and impossibly smooth, like a fragment of another world held in your hand. In the late 19th century, a series of such objects began to surface, captivating the world with their impossible perfection. These were the crystal skulls, life-sized human skulls carved from a single block of clear or milky quartz. Dealers claimed they were pre-Columbian relics crafted by the Aztecs or the Maya with techniques lost to time. The most famous of them all, the Mitchell-Hedges skull, was said to have been discovered in the 1920s by adventurer F. Mitchell-Hedges beneath a collapsed altar in a Mayan city in Belize. Its legend grew with stories of its impossible craftsmanship, supposedly carved against the natural grain of the crystal with no telltale marks of metal tools. Whispers began to circulate that these were not mere artifacts but objects of immense power. Some claimed they were relics from the lost continent of Atlantis, data storage devices from an advanced civilization. Others believed that when all 13 of the legendary skulls were brought together, they would reveal profound secrets about the universe, the true history of humanity, or even how to avert a global catastrophe. For decades, these tales went largely unchallenged, fueling the skull's status as some of the world's most enigmatic archaeological wonders. Then, in the early 2000s, science finally took a closer look. Researchers at institutions like the British Museum and the Smithsonian subjected the skulls to high-powered microscopic analysis. The truth they revealed was far less magical, but in its own way just as fascinating. The surfaces of the skulls showed the unmistakable, microscopic scratches of high-speed, rotary wheels coated in industrial diamond abrasives, tools that simply did not exist in the ancient Americas. They were modern fakes, almost certainly manufactured in the workshops of 19th century Germany, a hub for carving such objects for the burgeoning European curiosity market. The legend was officially debunked, yet the skulls have not lost their power. Their haunting appeal does not come from their supposed ancient origins, but from what they reveal about us. They are a perfect mirror for our deep-seated desire to believe in a forgotten golden age, a time when ancient peoples possessed a wisdom and technology that rivals our own. We want to believe that the past holds magical answers to our present problems, that a beautifully carved piece of rock can be a key to a greater mystery. Even when faced with cold, hard evidence, that desire to believe often proves stronger than the truth itself. While a crystal skull can be held and examined, some mysteries refuse to be touched at all. Deep within the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University, there is a book that absolutely no one can read. This is the Voynich manuscript, a 240-page codex that has become the holy grail of unsolved codes. Its pages are filled from edge to edge with a beautiful, looping, and completely unknown script. Not a single word of it has ever been definitively translated. The illustrations that accompany this bizarre text only deepen the mystery. There are detailed drawings of plants that do not resemble any known species on Earth, their roots and leaves arranged in impossible configurations. There are astrological charts showing unfamiliar constellations and nebulas that look almost cellular, and there are pages filled with intricate diagrams of plumbing systems, populated by dozens of small, nude female figures bathing in or flowing through green, interconnected tubes. The manuscript's known history begins in the 17th century, when it appeared in the hands of a Roman alchemist. It eventually found its way into the private collection of a Polish book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich, who brought it to the world's attention in 1912. Since that day, it has been a siren's call for the world's greatest minds. Elite codebreakers from both world wars, including a team that had just cracked the infamous German Enigma machine, turned their formidable skills to the Voynich. They failed. Modern supercomputers have analyzed its patterns, searching for the grammatical structure of a hidden language. They have found nothing. Linguists and botanists and historians have all taken their turn, and all have walked away baffled. The manuscript's haunting power is not in what it says, but in its profound silence. It is a ghost of information, a tangible message from the past that we can see and touch, but whose voice we cannot hear. It sits there patiently on its library shelf, holding within its vellum pages the shape of a thought, the ghost of an idea from a mind that has been dust for centuries. It teases us with the agonizing possibility that it contains profound lost knowledge, a forgotten science or a heretical spiritual text, and we may simply never be smart enough to know. The silence of an unread book gives way to a desert canvas of impossible scale. Scattered across the arid plains of southern Peru, the Nazca lines are a gallery of giants etched into the sun-baked earth. These are not small carvings, but geoglyphs on a staggering scale, depicting a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a massive spider, a monkey with an elaborately curled tail, and vast geometric shapes that stretch for miles across the desert floor. Their true majesty is invisible from the ground, a secret kept for over 1,500 years, only revealed in its full, breathtaking glory with the advent of flight. The Nazca culture, which flourished between 500 years before the Common Era and 500 years after, created these immense figures by simply removing the dark, iron oxide-coated pebbles that blanket the desert, exposing the lighter-colored sand beneath. This simple technique created a contrast that has survived for centuries in one of the driest places on Earth. But the how is simple compared to the haunting question of why. Why would a people with no ability to fly create art they themselves could never truly see? One leading theory suggests the lines formed a massive astronomical calendar, with the shapes aligning with celestial bodies and constellations to mark seasons and vital rainfall cycles. Another, perhaps more poignant idea posits they were ritual pathways walked by priests during ceremonies to plead with the gods, especially the water deities essential for survival in such a harsh climate. The lines may have been a form of prayer, a desperate, beautiful message to the heavens, written so large it could not be ignored. Then there are the more speculative theories that send a different kind of shiver down the spine. Some look at the long, straight runways and complex patterns and see landing strips for ancient astronauts, directions left for extraterrestrial visitors. While mainstream archaeology dismisses this, the very existence of such an idea highlights the profound strangeness of the accomplishment. The true mystery of the Nazca lines is not a question of engineering but of psychology. It speaks to a human drive so powerful it defies practical explanation, the need to create a legacy so vast and permanent that it would outlive its creators and whisper across the millennia to whoever or whatever might one day look down from the sky. A sword thrust deep into an anvil atop a stone awaited a hero who could pull it free. This is the iconic image of King Arthur, a legend so deeply woven into the fabric of Britain that it feels more like a national memory than a story. At its core lies a plausible historical truth, a war leader named Artorius who fought to hold back the invading Saxon armies during the bloody collapse of Roman Britain in the late 5th and early 6th centuries. This shadowy figure, perhaps a Roman-trained cavalry commander, was the seed from which an immense forest of myth grew. The tales we know today, compiled centuries later, transformed this rugged battlefield commander into the archetype of the perfect king. We have Merlin, the wise and mysterious sorcerer guiding his destiny. We have the Knights of the Round Table, an order of chivalry founded on equality, for the table had no head, meaning no knight was greater than another. And we have the elusive spiritual quest for the Holy Grail, the cup used by Christ at the Last Supper, which became the ultimate test of a knight's purity and faith. The legend is rooted in specific, tangible places that you can still visit today. Tintagel Castle, a dramatic ruin perched on the windswept cliffs of Cornwall, is fabled as his birthplace, a location where the roar of the sea seems to whisper ancient secrets. But what truly haunts us about King Arthur is not the historical man, nor the magical swords like Excalibur. It is the promise. The legend concludes not with his death, but with his journey to the mystical Isle of Avalon to be healed of his mortal wounds, with the understanding that he will return as the once and future king in Britain's hour of greatest need. This is a hope that has echoed through countless dark ages, from wars and plagues to times of national uncertainty. The legend endures because it speaks to a universal longing for a leader who is not just powerful, but also just and noble, a savior who sleeps just out of sight, waiting for the moment we need him most. That same Arthurian legend, with its promise of a returning king, also gave us history's most famous and elusive treasure hunt. The Holy Grail began its life in Christian tradition as a simple, powerful object, the cup Jesus used at the Last Supper. Later lore suggested it was also used by Joseph of Arimathea to catch the blood of Christ at the crucifixion, transforming it into a vessel of immense sacred power. This single object became the ultimate spiritual prize for the Knights of the Round Table, a quest that was less about finding a physical cup and more about the internal purification required to behold it. Only the purest knight, like the flawless Sir Galahad, could ever achieve this divine vision. The Grail was not just a relic, it was a test of the soul, a symbol of divine grace and the promise of eternal life for those worthy enough to find it. Over the centuries, the legend evolved and morphed, absorbing new meanings and mysteries. In modern times, books like the Da Vinci Code radically reinterpreted the Grail, suggesting it was not a cup at all, but a metaphor for the sacred bloodline of Jesus Christ himself, a secret lineage protected through the ages. This idea tapped into a deep fascination with hidden histories and suppressed truths, transforming the Grail from a spiritual goal into the centerpiece of a sprawling conspiracy. The haunting, enduring power of the Holy Grail lies precisely in this duality. It is both a specific, tangible object of desire, something you could theoretically hold in your hands, and yet it remains an utterly unattainable spiritual ideal. It represents humanity's endless, restless search for meaning, for redemption, and for a direct personal connection to the divine. We are all, in a sense, on our own Grail quest, searching for that one thing we believe will make us whole, whether it is found in a church, a history book, or the quiet depths of our own spirit. Fear is a familiar companion in the wilderness, but in the French province of Gévaudan, it took on a new and terrifying shape. For 3 long years, from 1764 to 1767, the rolling hills and dense forests were stalked by a predator unlike any other. It was described as a wolf, but witnesses spoke of a beast of monstrous proportions with a massive chest, a strangely elongated snout, and fur tinged with red. Its method of attack was what truly set it apart. This creature did not just hunt for food, it seemed to hunt for sport, displaying a chilling preference for human flesh, often ignoring livestock to target the most vulnerable, women and children tending flocks alone in the fields. The death toll mounted with horrifying speed, eventually surpassing 100 confirmed attacks, many of them gruesomely fatal. Panic spread like a plague, gripping the entire region. The terror became so immense that it reached the court of King Louis XV himself. He took a personal interest, sending his own professional huntsmen and elite dragoons to the region, even offering a fortune in gold, a king's ransom for the head of the beast. The hunts that followed were epic in scale, involving thousands of local men and soldiers sweeping the countryside. They killed numerous large wolves, and on 2 separate, triumphant occasions, they believed they had finally slain the monster. The first wolf, killed in 1765, was stuffed and put on display in Versailles, but the attacks did not stop. The killing only ceased after a local hunter named Jean Chastel reportedly shot a massive, peculiar-looking wolf later that same year. The legend, however, was just beginning. The true identity of the beast of Gévaudan has been debated ever since. Was it simply an enormous, abnormally aggressive European wolf, driven by hunger or disease? Could it have been a wolf-dog hybrid, a creature with a wolf's strength but without a wolf's natural fear of humans? Some more speculative theories point to a surviving prehistoric predator, like a dire wolf, or even an escaped exotic animal, such as a lion or a hyena. Then there is the most disturbing theory of all, one that shifts the blame from the animal kingdom to humankind itself. Some historians have suggested the beast was a cover for a human serial killer, a person who used the climate of fear to commit murders and mutilations, letting a wolf take the blame. This idea is supported by reports that some victims were found decapitated, an act not typical of a wild animal. The haunting power of this legend is not in the monster itself, but in the blurred line it represents. It lives in that unsettling gray area between the natural world we think we understand and something far darker and more chaotic. The beast of Gévaudan taps into the primal, deep-seated fear of being hunted, the chilling notion that something is watching from the woods, something that defies all explanation and exists solely to prey upon us. A chill autumn wind whispers through the Hudson Valley, carrying the scent of wood smoke and decaying leaves. It is the perfect setting for a ghost, and Washington Irving gave America one of its most enduring specters in 1820, the Headless Horseman. While Ichabod Crane is a fictional creation, a superstitious and gangly schoolteacher, the terror he faced was pulled from much older soil. Irving drew upon European tales of headless riders, spectral figures from Germanic and Dutch lore who galloped through the night as omens of death, often the restless souls of soldiers who had lost their heads in battle. He transplanted this ancient fear to the new American landscape, specifically the haunted hollows of post-Revolutionary War New York. The horseman is no generic phantom. He is a Hessian soldier, a mercenary fighting for the British, whose head was carried away by a cannonball. This specific detail ties the ghost directly to the very real, bloody trauma of the war that had so recently scarred the young nation. The story of Ichabod's fateful ride home from a harvest party is a masterpiece of escalating dread. He is a man of reason, or so he believes, yet his mind is filled with the ghost stories he so eagerly consumes. Every rustle in the trees, every shadow cast by the harvest moon becomes a manifestation of his own fear. And then the hoofbeats begin. The apparition that pursues him is the stuff of pure nightmare, a towering figure on a black steed, holding his own severed head before him like a lantern. The legend's power lies in its brilliant ambiguity. Did the Headless Horseman truly chase Ichabod Crane, or was the schoolteacher simply the victim of a well-executed prank by his rival, Brom Bones, who was also dressed as a ghost that night? The story offers no definitive answer, leaving us to wonder whether the terror was supernatural or all too human. This uncertainty is why the Headless Horseman has galloped so far beyond the pages of Irving's book. He has become the iconic spirit of Halloween, a symbol of the thin veil between our world and the next. But more deeply, he represents the ghosts of history that refuse to stay buried, the lingering wounds of war that continue to haunt the very land where the blood was spilled, waiting for a nervous traveler on a dark, lonely road. A deep blue diamond carries a fire within it, a captured piece of the ocean under a stormy sky. This is the Hope Diamond, a 45-carat gem of breathtaking beauty with a reputation as dark as its color is vivid. Its known history begins in the 17th century in the Kolar mine of India, where it was said to have been pried from the forehead of a statue of the Hindu goddess Sita. This act of sacrilege, so the legend goes, was the moment the curse was born. The stone was crudely cut and made its way to Europe, where it was acquired by King Louis XIV of France and shaped into a 67-carat jewel he called the Blue Diamond of the Crown. From there, the trail of misfortune seems to weave through history. Both Louis and his mistress, Madame de Montespan, fell from grace. Later, King Louis XVI and his queen, Marie Antoinette, both owned the diamond before they were famously sent to the guillotine during the French Revolution. The diamond was stolen during the ensuing chaos, vanishing for decades before resurfacing in London, recut into its current form. Its subsequent owners read like a roster of tragedy. A Greek merchant named Simon Montharides supposedly owned it briefly before he and his family plunged over a cliff in their carriage. The gem then came into the possession of the Hope family, who gave the diamond its name and, according to law, saw their fortune dwindle to nothing. An American socialite, Evelyn Walsh McLean, bought the diamond and draped it around her neck, believing its curse was powerless against her. Her life, however, was marked by profound personal horror. Her son killed in a car accident, her daughter dying by suicide, and her husband leaving her for another woman before being declared insane. The curse appeared to be an unbroken chain of violent deaths, financial ruin, and despair. Yet, the most compelling part of this story is not the curse itself, but its invention. The entire narrative of a systematic curse was likely fabricated in the early 20th century by a clever French journalist named Pierre Cartier. He was trying to sell the diamond to Evelyn McLean and knew that a macabre history, a tale of doomed kings and tragic heiresses, would be far more enticing than a simple list of previous owners. He crafted a sensational backstory, linking the diamond to every misfortune that had ever befallen its possessors, and she bought it, both the gem and the legend. The haunting power of the Hope Diamond's curse lies in this deliberate creation. It is a perfect example of how we project our own fears onto the world, especially onto objects of immense value and beauty. We find it strangely comforting to believe that such extreme wealth and privilege come with a price, a cosmic balance enforced by a malevolent force. The curse gives a sense of order to random tragedy, a reason for the unexplainable. Today, the Hope Diamond rests peacefully behind thick glass at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., viewed by millions without incident. Its curse has been silenced, but its legend has not. It endures as a chilling fairy tale for the modern world, a reminder that the most powerful curses are not those cast by gods, but the ones we choose to believe in ourselves. The deep blue of a cursed diamond gives way to the sulfurous red glow of a creature's eyes in the night. Over 13 months in the small river town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a collective nightmare took wing. It began in November 1966, when two young couples driving near a former World War II munitions area known as the TNT saw something that would change their lives and the town's history forever. A tall, man-shaped figure, but with immense wings folded against its back, rose from the shadows. Its most terrifying feature was a pair of glowing, red, hypnotic eyes. They fled in panic, and when they reported the encounter to the local sheriff, they launched a modern legend, the Mothman. They were not alone. Over the next year, hundreds of credible witnesses, including police officers, firefighters, and business owners, reported seeing the same creature. It was described as being larger than a man, with a wingspan of 10 feet or more, and an uncanny ability to keep pace with a speeding car, soaring beside it without a single flap of its wings. The sightings were often accompanied by other strange phenomena, including visits from mysterious men in black who silenced witnesses, and bizarre electrical malfunctions in cars and homes. The town was gripped by a fever of fear and fascination. Then, on December 15, 1967, just over a year after the first sighting, tragedy struck. During the evening rush hour, the Silver Bridge, a vital river crossing packed with Christmas shoppers and commuters, shuddered and collapsed into the icy waters of the Ohio River. 46 people lost their lives in the catastrophic failure. In the grim aftermath, the pattern became chillingly clear to many. The Mothman sightings had stopped the moment the bridge fell. The legend solidified. This was no random monster. It was a harbinger of doom, a modern omen that had appeared to warn the town of the catastrophe to come. But what did all those people actually see? Skeptics point to a far more earthly, yet still fascinating explanation. The area around Point Pleasant is a known nesting ground for sandhill cranes, enormous birds that can stand over 4 feet tall with wingspans of up to 7 feet. When startled, their eyes can reflect a red glow in car headlights. Could a combination of misidentified birds, fueled by local folklore and the power of suggestion, have created a mass hallucination, a classic case of mass hysteria? Yet, for those who looked into those red eyes, no ornithological explanation will ever suffice. The haunting legacy of the Mothman is not about proving a creature exists, but about the terrifying idea it represents that the universe might send us messengers. It forces us to confront a deeply unsettling question. Were those glowing red eyes a malevolent curse or a desperate, misunderstood attempt to warn a town of its fate? The Mothman endures because it embodies our ancient fear of the sign, the omen in the sky, and our desperate, modern struggle to decipher it before it is too late. High on the wind-scoured peaks of the Himalayas, where the air grows thin and the world turns to ice, there walks a giant. For the Sherpa people, the Yeti is not a monster, but a fundamental part of the mountain's sacred ecology. They call it the Métis, the man-bear, a powerful and elusive ape-like creature woven deeply into their folklore. It is a guardian spirit of the high snows, a being to be respected and feared, whose presence explains strange noises in the night and mysterious tracks found far above the tree line. This cultural belief is ancient and deeply rooted, a way for people living in one of Earth's most extreme environments to give a name and a shape to the unknown that surrounds them. The modern world first took serious notice in 1921, when explorer Colonel Charles Howard Berry reported seeing large, human-like footprints at a high altitude on Mount Everest. The Sherpa guides with him identified them instantly as Yeti tracks, and the legend of the abominable snowman was born in the Western imagination. The hunt was on. Expeditions returned with tantalizing but always inconclusive evidence. There were photographs of large footprints in the snow, some showing a curious, single-line track as if made by a bipedal creature. There were stories of strange, haunting calls echoing across the glacial valleys. Most famous of all were the physical relics like the so-called Yeti scalps and a mummified hand kept in a remote monastery. For decades, these objects were presented as near-definitive proof. Then came rigorous scientific analysis. In the 1960s and again with modern DNA testing, these sacred relics were examined. The scalps were not from a mysterious primate, they were fashioned from the skin and fur of the serow, a goat-like antelope native to the region. The mummified hand was human. Each piece of evidence, when placed under the cold, objective lens of science, crumbled into the mundane. Despite this, the legend refuses to die. It haunts us not because of the evidence, but because of the vast, white emptiness it represents. The Himalayas are one of the last truly unexplored territories on our planet, a sprawling, treacherous wilderness of ice and rock so immense that it could easily hide a relict population of a species we believe to be extinct. The Yeti is a ghost from our own planet's deep past, a potential living fossil like Gigantopithecus, a massive ape that once rusted Asia. The idea that such a creature could still walk the high passes taps into a profound and thrilling hope that the world is not yet fully catalogued, that genuine mystery still exists just beyond the edge of our maps, waiting in the silent, frozen reaches of the roof of the world. The dark, peat-stained waters of Loch Ness hold more than just the cold of the Scottish Highlands. They hold one of the world's most stubborn legends. This is the domain of Nessie, a creature said to be a living relic from the age of dinosaurs, a long-necked plesios or surviving in the lake's profound depths. The story begins not with a blurry photograph but with a saint. In the 6th century, the Irish monk Saint Columba is said to have confronted a water beast in the river Ness, commanding it to retreat and saving the life of a swimmer. This ancient account laid a foundation of belief that would lay dormant for centuries, waiting for the modern world to rediscover it. The legend truly exploded into global consciousness in the 1930s. A new road was built along the loch's shore, offering clear, unobstructed views of the water for the first time. Almost immediately, the sightings began. Then came the photograph that would define the mystery for generations. In 1934, the London Daily Mail published a picture taken by a respected gynecologist, Robert Kenneth Wilson. It showed a serpentine neck and head rising from the lake's calm surface. This was the surgeon's photograph, and it was treated as ironclad proof. For decades, this single image was the cornerstone of the Nessie legend. The truth, when it finally emerged decades later, was a stunning admission of deception. The surgeon's photograph was an elaborate hoax, a toy submarine fitted with a sculpted head and neck, created as part of a petty scheme to humiliate a newspaper editor. The most famous evidence was a fraud, yet even this devastating revelation could not kill the monster. The hunt simply evolved, trading cameras for technology. Sonar boats have crisscrossed the loch, sometimes finding unexplained, large moving objects deep below. A major DNA survey in 2019 analyzed hundreds of water samples, cataloging every biological trace in the loch. The results found no DNA from a large, unknown reptile or fish, only evidence of countless eels, whose large size and sinuous movement could easily account for many mistaken sightings. So why does Nessie endure when every piece of evidence crumbles under scrutiny? The answer lies not in the water, but in us. Loch Ness is a place of almost supernatural atmosphere. It is immensely deep, dark with dissolved peat and shrouded in rolling mists. It is a landscape that feels ancient and secretive, a perfect blank canvas for our imagination. The monster is a symbol for all the unexplored corners of our own planet, a representation of the thrilling possibility that we do not know every creature that shares this world with us. We want to believe that in an age of satellites and science, there is still a giant, gentle mystery swimming in the dark, waiting to be found. While one monster haunted the skies of West Virginia, another crept through the farmlands of the Caribbean with a far more visceral appetite. The legend of the Chupacabra is a distinctly modern horror, born not in ancient texts but in the sweltering heat of Puerto Rico in 1995. The first reports described something truly alien, a creature that stood on two legs like a small dinosaur, with leathery gray skin, sharp quills running down its spine, and glowing red eyes. Its name, given by the terrified locals, was brutally direct: Chupacabra, the goat sucker. This was no mere predator, it was a vampire. Farmers would find their livestock, goats and chickens mostly, completely drained of blood through small, precise puncture wounds in the neck, their bodies otherwise untouched. The terror spread like wildfire across the island, then leaped to mainland Latin America and the southern United States, leaving a trail of bloodless animals and panicked communities in its wake. Then something strange happened. The monster began to change. As the legend migrated north, the bipedal, reptilian fiend transformed into a different kind of beast altogether. New eyewitnesses described a hairless, dog-like creature, emaciated and mangy, with a pronounced spine and large fangs. This version was less an extraterrestrial and more a creature from a biological nightmare, something that looked like a coyote or a fox ravaged by a terrible disease. This evolution is the key to the Chupacabra's haunting power. Science offers a clear, if unsettling, explanation for the canine version. The animals described match almost perfectly with coyotes or dogs suffering from severe sarcoptic mange. This parasitic skin disease causes horrific hair loss, thickened skin, a stooped posture, and a crippling weakness. A coyote with mange is a pitiful and frightening sight, its gaunt frame and desperate demeanor making it look like a monster from a nightmare. Driven by starvation and illness, these sick animals would indeed attack livestock, but they lack the strength for a typical kill. They might nibble and bite, creating wounds that, to a frightened farmer discovering them hours later, could appear as if the animal had been drained. The original reptilian version is harder to pin down, a possible fusion of mass hysteria, cultural fears, and the power of suggestion. The Chupacabra is not a single monster but a shape-shifter. Its true form is fear itself, a blank canvas onto which we project our anxieties about emerging diseases, ecological disruption, and the unsettling feeling that the natural world is turning against us. It is a legend born in the age of the internet, a ghost story that evolves in real time, proving that our need for monsters is as adaptable as the chupacabra itself. While the chupacabra was a monster of modern anxiety, a very different kind of legend once filled medieval maps with glorious possibility. In the midst of the Crusades, a story began to circulate through the courts of Europe about a savior waiting in the distant, unknown lands of the East. This was Prester John, a mythical Christian king of immense wealth and piety who ruled a vast empire beyond the borders of the Muslim world. He was said to be a direct descendant of one of the three magi, a patriarch and a king who commanded a vast army and possessed treasures beyond imagining. Then, around the year 1165, a letter arrived, addressed to the Byzantine emperor and the Pope. This document, supposedly from Prester John himself, described his kingdom in breathtaking detail. It was a land flowing with milk and honey, a paradise where peace and justice reigned supreme. The letter spoke of fantastic marvels, including the fountain of youth itself, which granted immortality to those who drank from its waters. It described mythical creatures like the Blemmeyes, headless men with their faces on their chests, and races of people with a single, giant foot they could use as a sunshade. For a Europe locked in a seemingly endless holy war, this was not just a fairy tale, it was a divine revelation. The idea of a powerful Christian ally, poised to attack the Muslim empires from the rear, ignited a flame of desperate hope that burned for centuries. This single, fabricated letter, likely written by a clever European cleric, fundamentally reshaped the course of history. It sent explorers, missionaries, and diplomats on perilous journeys into the heart of Asia, all seeking the court of this legendary king. When Mongol armies began sweeping west, European leaders initially rejoiced, believing they were the forces of Prester John finally coming to their aid. The legend was so potent that it even influenced the voyages of Portugal's Prince Henry the Navigator, who sent ships down the coast of Africa hoping to find a river route to this Christian kingdom. The haunting power of Prester John's legend is not in its truth, but in its profound demonstration of how a story can become a force of nature. It was a collective dream of deliverance, a beautiful lie that drove men across uncharted oceans and through deadly deserts. It shows us that the most powerful compass is not always magnetic north, but the direction pointed by our most fervent hopes, a bearing that can lead to the discovery of new worlds, even when the promised king was never there to begin with. The bells of Wise are still ringing. That is what the fishermen of Brittany will tell you on a quiet morning when the tide is just right, a ghostly chime rising from the deep to haunt the living. This is the legend of a city more beautiful than any other, a marvel of engineering built upon land reclaimed from the sea. King Gradlon, its wise and pious ruler, protected his magnificent capital with a single colossal dike, a wall that held back the entire ocean. The only key to the massive gate that released the tidal waters was a single silver key, and Gradlon kept it on a chain around his own neck, a solemn symbol of his ultimate responsibility. Yet the city's greatest treasure was also the source of its doom, the king's own daughter, Princess Dahat. She was a creature of wild impulses and hedonistic pleasures, and under her influence, Wise became a city of endless festivals and decadent sin. She held lavish, masked balls where strangers were encouraged to indulge their darkest desires, and it was said that each night she would take a new lover, only to have him mysteriously disappear by morning, his face forever hidden by a magical silver mask. One night, during a violent storm that shook the very foundations of the city, a mysterious knight in red armor appeared and captivated Dahat. He whispered to her that the city was suffocating, that it needed to breathe the wild sea air, and he convinced her to steal the silver key from her sleeping father. Drunk on wine and passion, she crept into the king's chamber, took the key, and ran to the great dike. With a turn of the silver key, she unlocked the gate and threw it open. The ocean, held at bay for so long, did not simply flow in, it roared. a colossal wave fueled by the storm's fury crashed over the walls and began to swallow the city whole. King Gradlon awoke to the sound of the deluge. He seized his daughter, mounted his great horse, and spurred it through the rising waters, fleeing for their lives. But as the waves clawed at the horse's legs, a divine voice boomed from the heavens, commanding Gradlon to cast the demon behind him into the sea. He realized in that terrible moment that his own daughter, the source of the city's corruption, was the demon. With a heart shattered by duty, he pushed Dahat from the horse. The moment she hit the water, the storm ceased, and the king's horse found solid ground, saving Gradlon but sealing the city's fate. Wise was lost forever to the waves, a glittering paradise sunk beneath the bay of Douarnenez. The legend haunts the coast not just as a story, but as a stark warning etched into the very landscape. It is a classic morality tale of hubris and divine retribution, where human achievement, no matter how grand, is forever vulnerable to the weaknesses of the human heart and the raw, unforgiving power of nature. And so the bells are said to ring on, a beautiful, tragic echo from the deep, reminding everyone who hears them of the glorious city that pride and folly built, and that the sea, in the end, was always destined to reclaim. A ghost ship materializes from a wall of sea fog, its tattered sails billowing in a wind no one else can feel. This is the Flying Dutchman, one of the most enduring phantoms of the deep, a vessel condemned to sail the world's oceans for eternity, never making port, never granting its crew rest. Its legend is rooted in the brutal realities of 17th century trade, when Dutch East India Company ships battled the treacherous waters around the Cape of Good Hope, a passage so perilous it was nicknamed the Cape of Storms. The most famous version of the tale pins the curse on a captain, often called Van der Decken, a man of monstrous pride and stubbornness. As his ship fought a hurricane, his crew begged him to turn back, but he refused. He swore a blasphemous oath, vowing to round the Cape even if it took him until doomsday. For his defiance against God and nature, that is precisely the punishment he received, an immortal sentence of endless sailing. For centuries, sailors have reported eerie encounters. They speak of a galleon glowing with a spectral light, sailing against the wind or appearing on the horizon only to vanish moments later. To see the Dutchman was considered one of the worst possible omens, a direct forecast of shipwreck, storm, or death. The legend was even formally logged in 1881 by a Royal Navy ship, the HMS Bacchante, which recorded a sighting by the young Prince George, a future King of England. The haunting power of the Flying Dutchman is not just in its ghostly appearance, but in the profound existential terror it represents. It is the ultimate maritime nightmare, a floating purgatory for the sin of hubris. It embodies the sailor's deepest fears, not of drowning, but of something far worse, eternal isolation on the endless, uncaring sea, a perpetual reminder that the ocean is a force that can defy not just men, but time itself. A flickering light dances just beyond the safety of the path, a pale flame that beckons from the heart of the swamp. These are the will-o'-the-wisps, ethereal glows known by many haunting names, jack-o'-lanterns in England, fairy lights in Celtic lore, or simply the ghost lights of the marsh. For centuries, these elusive glimmers have been the stuff of terrified whispers. They were never considered natural. Many believed them to be the lost souls of the dead, condemned to wander the bogs for eternity, carrying a damned lantern. Others saw them as something far more mischievous, the handiwork of fairies or earth spirits deliberately trying to lead late-night travelers off the solid ground and into the treacherous, sucking mud of the wetlands. The light would appear, swaying invitingly, always seeming just within reach. A traveler, thinking it was another person with a lantern, would follow, only to find the light constantly retreating, pulling them deeper and deeper into a maze of murky water and unstable earth until they were hopelessly lost or met a watery grave. This was the true horror of the will-o'-the-wisp. It was not a monster that attacked, but a deceptive guide that exploited hope and curiosity, turning the landscape itself into a lethal trap. The mystery of what caused these lights persisted for generations, a perfect puzzle of the pre-scientific world. Then, modern chemistry offered a stunningly simple, yet still magical, explanation. The phenomenon is a natural combustion. In waterlogged environments like bogs and marshes, the decay of organic plant matter produces marsh gas, primarily methane, along with phosphine and diphosphane. These gases, seeping up from the rot below, can ignite spontaneously upon contact with the air, creating those fleeting, low-temperature flames that seem to hover and dance just above the ground. The haunting power of the will-o'-the-wisp, therefore, does not come from a ghost or a fairy, but from this beautiful, eerie collision of life, death, and chemistry. It is the literal fire of decay, a cold light born from the end of things playing in the darkness. This legend endures because it perfectly captures the ancient human fear of the wild, untamed places, and the deep-seated understanding that nature itself can be both breathtakingly beautiful and cunningly dangerous. West of Ireland, where the Atlantic swells meet the coastal mist, old charts once marked an island that was not there. This was High Brassel, a circular phantom territory said to be veiled in an impenetrable fog, only revealing itself to the world for a single day every 7 years. Its story is woven into the very fabric of maritime cartography, appearing on maps as early as the 1300s, a tantalizing disk drawn confidently off the coast of County Kerry. For centuries, its existence was not just a sailor's yarn. It was a cartographic fact, a destination that lured explorers to brave the treacherous North Atlantic. Even the famed John Cabot, after his initial voyage to North America, reportedly led an expedition in search of this elusive isle, convinced it held untold riches. He returned, like all the others, with only empty horizons and unanswered questions. The descriptions of High Brassel varied wildly, adding to its mystique. Some accounts portrayed it as a simple, rocky island, while others spun tales of an advanced civilization, a utopian society possessing a wisdom far beyond that of medieval Europe. It was a promised land, an earthly paradise waiting just beyond the veil of the known world. The haunting power of High Brassel is not that it was ever found, but that it was so fervently believed in for so long. It represents the final, romantic edge of the map, that blank space where human knowledge faltered and legend took over. In our modern age of satellite imagery and global positioning systems, where every inch of the planet is seemingly charted and catalogued, the story of High Brassel endures as a vital ghost. It whispers a thrilling possibility that the ocean, vast and ancient, might still be guarding a final secret, a phantom land that exists not in the water, but in the uncharted depths of our own collective imagination. The strange case of the Green Children of Woolpit feels less like a fireside tale and more like a forgotten page from a parish record. In the 12th century, during the reign of King Stephen, the villagers of this small English settlement made a discovery that defied all logic. Reapers working in the fields found 2 children, a boy and a girl, huddled and terrified at the mouth of a wolf pit, the very feature that gave the village its name. Their clothing was made of an unusual fabric, and their skin was tinged a faint, unsettling green. They spoke a language no one could recognize, and when offered food, they refused everything except for raw green beans, which they devoured with a desperate hunger. The boy, frail from the start, soon sickened and died, leaving his sister utterly alone in a world she could not comprehend. In time, the girl learned English and her skin lost its green hue as she adopted a normal diet. When she was finally able to tell her story, it was more baffling than any wild speculation. She described coming from a place called St. Martin's Land, a twilight realm where the sun never rose and the light was perpetual like the glow just before dusk. She and her brother had been herding their father's cattle when they heard a loud sound like bells and suddenly found themselves in the Woolpit pit, blinded by the intense, unfamiliar glare of our sun. So what were these children? One rational theory suggests they were Flemish immigrants, possibly orphans from a nearby community where their language and customs would have seemed alien. Some Flemish settlers had indeed been persecuted around that time, and their traditional green clothing could have cast a reflected tint onto malnourished skin. Their refusal to eat anything but beans could point to a digestive illness or simple starvation. Yet this practical explanation struggles with the girl's own testimony, her detailed description of a sunless world. This leads to the more speculative, haunting idea that the story is a fragment of folklore about subterranean people, a belief in fairy realms that existed just beside our own, accessible through caves and pits. The true power of the Woolpert account is its chilling specificity. This was not a vague rumor, but a documented event with a clear time and place. It feels like a brief, inexplicable crack in the wall of our reality, a momentary glimpse of another world or another possibility that opened for just long enough to let two lost children stumble through before sealing shut forever, leaving behind only a mystery that has echoed for 800 years. A single act of mockery echoes through 2,000 years of history. The legend of the wandering Jew begins at the most pivotal moment in the Christian story, the crucifixion. As Jesus struggled beneath the weight of the cross on the road to Golgotha, he is said to have paused to rest at the doorstep of a Jewish man. The man, named Cartaphilus in some versions, responded not with compassion but with scorn, taunting Jesus to move faster. The reply from Jesus was not a plea but a curse: "You will go on until I return." With those words, Cartaphilus was condemned to walk the earth, unable to die until the second coming. This figure was not a ghost, but a living man cursed with immortality, forced to witness the relentless march of centuries, a perpetual outsider. His punishment was to be a living memory of that single, cruel moment, a permanent spectator to a world from which he was forever separated. Over time, this specific individual began to blur and transform into a broader, more troubling symbol. The wandering Jew evolved from one man into a representation of an entire people, seemingly eternally displaced and awaiting a redemption that was forever just out of reach. The legend became deeply entangled with the real-world persecution of Jewish communities, used for centuries as a theological justification for antisemitism. It painted Jewish people as collectively guilty for the death of Christ and their historical diaspora as a divine punishment. This myth provided a powerful and dangerous narrative that was weaponized to marginalize and attack. Yet within this painful history, the figure also carries a more complex and haunting weight. He is the ultimate witness, a man who has seen every empire rise and fall, every war, every triumph and tragedy of humanity. He carries the immense, lonely burden of history itself, a walking archive of all that we have been. The legend haunts us not because we fear a single immortal man, but because it holds up a mirror to our own deepest anxieties about guilt, punishment, and the passage of time. It asks a chilling question that resonates far beyond its religious origins. What is the true cost of witnessing history, and when does a punishment become its own eternal prison? A promise broken can echo louder than any music. In the summer of 1284, the German town of Hamelin was drowning in rats. The creatures swarmed through the streets, devouring grain, spreading disease, and defying every trap the desperate townspeople could set. Then a stranger appeared, a man dressed in a coat of many colors. He promised to rid the town of its plague, asking for a substantial sum of gold as his payment. The town leaders, seeing no other way out, hastily agreed. The piper raised his flute to his lips and began to play a strange, hypnotic melody. The music wove through the air, and as if pulled by an invisible force, every rat in Hamelin crept from its hiding place. A river of vermin followed the piper as he walked, leading them directly to the Weser River, where every single one plunged in and drowned. The town erupted in celebration, but their joy was short-lived. When the piper returned for his payment, the town council, seeing the threat was gone, refused to pay him, mocking him and sending him away with nothing. The piper left, his face a mask of cold fury. He returned on the morning of June 26th, a day now etched in the town's memory. While the adults were in church, he took out his pipe and began to play a different tune, a lighter, more enchanting air. This time, it was not rats that answered the call, but the town's children. 130 boys and girls, mesmerized by the magical music, streamed out of their homes and followed the piper as he walked. He led them through the city gate and toward the nearby Koppenberg mountain. As the piper and the last child reached the hillside, a mysterious doorway opened in the stone. The children followed him inside, the portal sealed shut behind them, and they were never seen again. The historical record is chillingly direct. A stained glass window from around 1300 in Hamelin's church depicted the colorful piper and the lost children, and the town's chronicle notes simply, in the year 1284, on the day of John and Paul, 130 children born in Hamelin were taken away by a piper into Calvary. This is not the language of myth, it is the language of a town recording a genuine, devastating tragedy. So what really happened in Hamelin? One leading theory connects the legend to the Children's Crusade of 1212, a tragic event where thousands of young people set out for the Holy Land, many of whom were lost or sold into slavery. The dates do not align perfectly, but the story could have merged over time. A more plausible explanation involves a migration event, perhaps organized by a charismatic recruiter, known in German as a locator, who was hired to entice young people to settle new territories in Eastern Europe. These recruiters often wore bright clothing to attract attention, and they would literally lead groups of settlers away to new lives, a journey from which they would never return to their hometown. The haunting power of the Pied Piper is not in the magic of his pipe, but in the brutal, human truth at its core. It is a stark fable about the cost of a broken promise and the terrible consequences of communal greed. But its deepest chill comes from the vulnerability it exposes. The children, the town's most precious and innocent citizens, became the ultimate currency in a transaction of betrayal. This is why the story has endured as a chilling bedtime story for centuries, a dark lullaby that warns us about the strangers we distrust and the promises we fail to keep. A strange music began to play in the streets of Strasbourg in the summer of 1518, and it was a song the city could not resist. It started with a single woman, Frau Trophia, who stepped into the public square and simply began to dance. There was no celebration, no festival, no apparent reason for her movements. She just danced with a frantic, desperate energy that would not let her stop. For days she continued, her feet bleeding, her body pushed to the brink of collapse, and still she danced. The local authorities, baffled, initially decided the best cure was more dancing. They built a stage, hired musicians, and encouraged others to join, believing the mania would simply burn itself out. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. Within a month, the solitary dancer had become a crowd of over 400 people, all caught in the same uncontrollable frenzy. They danced until their ribs broke from exertion. They danced until they suffered heart attacks and strokes. They danced until they dropped dead in the cobblestone streets. This was the Dancing Plague, a real historical event that reads like a dark fairy tale. So what force could possibly compel hundreds of people to dance themselves to death? One of the most compelling explanations points to the very bread they ate. The region had been suffering from famine, and spoiled rye grain can become infected with a fungus called ergot. Ergot contains chemicals closely related to LSD, a powerful hallucinogen. Mass poisoning from this toxic bread could have triggered the convulsive, jerking movements and vivid hallucinations that witnesses described as a compulsive dance. It is a theory that turns a supernatural mystery into a tragic public health crisis. Yet another explanation delves even deeper into the human psyche. This was a society under immense strain, ravaged by disease, crippled by poverty, and steeped in superstitious fear. Psychologists call this phenomenon mass psychogenic illness, a form of mass hysteria where physical symptoms with no organic cause spread through a tightly knit community under extreme stress. The dancing may have begun as one woman's personal breakdown, a desperate, non-verbal cry for help, and in the anxious, feverish atmosphere of Strasbourg, it became a contagious language of despair. The true horror of the dancing plague is not a monster or a ghost, but the terrifying fragility of our own minds. It reveals how easily the fabric of a community can unravel, how a single, inexplicable action can become a collective compulsion that logic and authority are powerless to stop. This event haunts us because it holds up a dark mirror, forcing us to wonder what invisible forces, whether in our food or in our own fears, could one day make us all start dancing to a tune we cannot even hear. A disciplined Roman army simply ceased to exist. The legend of the lost Ninth Legion begins not with a grand battle, but with a quiet, unsettling absence from the historical record. The Legio Nona Hispana, the Ninth Spanish Legion, was a hardened and respected force, a veteran unit that had fought for centuries across the Roman Empire. By the 2nd century of the Common Era, it was stationed in the damp northern frontier of Britannia, tasked with subduing the fierce Caledonian tribes beyond Hadrian's Wall. Then, sometime around the year 120, the legion vanishes. It is no longer listed on military rosters, its soldiers' names disappear from pay records, and its proud eagle standard is never seen again. It was as if 5,000 of Rome's finest soldiers, along with their support staff and cavalry, had marched directly into the thick mists of the Scottish Highlands and were swallowed whole by the land itself. The immediate and most dramatic theory is that the legion was ambushed and annihilated in a massive, unreported battle. The Caledonians, led by warriors painted in woad, could have lured the heavily armored Romans into a boggy, treacherous glen where their famous discipline and formations were useless. In this version of the story, not a single man survived to tell the tale, leaving Rome to simply wonder what had happened to one of its most formidable legions. This idea of a complete and silent obliteration is profoundly haunting, a stark reminder that even the greatest military power could be utterly consumed by a hostile wilderness. Another, even more romantic legend suggests the legion did not perish but journeyed east. Folklore whispers that the survivors of a defeat marched across continents, eventually offering their services as mercenaries to a Chinese warlord, their lost eagle becoming a strange, foreign standard in the court of an emperor. While there is no credible historical evidence for this epic trek, the story's endurance speaks to our desire for a less final, more mysterious fate for these lost soldiers. The truth, as revealed by more recent archaeological evidence, is likely more bureaucratic but no less fatal. Fragments of military diplomas and tile stamps suggest that elements of the Ninth Legion were actually transferred out of Britain to fight in other, bloodier conflicts, possibly on the German frontier. It is there, in another unnamed battle against another barbarian tribe, that the legion may have finally been destroyed, its identity erased from the army lists after a catastrophic defeat. Yet, the legend of its disappearance in the Scottish mists remains far more powerful than this probable administrative end. The Lost Ninth haunts us because it embodies the ultimate military nightmare, the fear that a perfectly ordered, technologically superior force can simply be unmade by the unknown, leaving no glory, no story, and no legacy, only the whispering wind and an unanswered question. For over 200 years, a small, unassuming island off the coast of Nova Scotia has promised a fortune and delivered only ruin. The mystery of Oak Island began in 1795, when a teenager named Daniel Maginnis noticed strange lights and a peculiar, circular depression in the ground. Beneath it, he and his friends uncovered a shaft that would become known as the Money Pit. They hit a layer of flagstones, then a platform of oak logs 10 feet down, then another at 20 feet and another at 30. It was a man-made puzzle, a deep well engineered with terrifying precision. Each new excavation uncovered another layer of the trap, a series of booby traps that have defended the secret ever since. At 90 feet, treasure hunters hit a stone slab inscribed with a cryptic message. Beneath that, their probes struck a hollow chamber, but when they returned the next morning, the entire shaft was flooded with seawater. They had inadvertently triggered a brilliant and devastating defense system, a network of flood tunnels engineered from the nearby coast, designed to drown any hope of reaching the prize. For 2 centuries, this cycle has repeated itself, a tantalizing dance of discovery and disaster. 6 lives have been lost in the pursuit. Millions of dollars have been poured into the earth. The theories about what lies at the bottom are as vast as the investments. Some believe it is the treasure of Captain Kidd or Blackbeard, a pirate king's ransom in gold and jewels. Others propose it holds something far more sacred, like the lost manuscripts of William Shakespeare or even the Holy Grail itself. One compelling theory suggests it was the work of French engineers hiding Marie Antoinette's jewels during the Revolution, a royal fortune smuggled across the Atlantic for safekeeping. Yet the haunting appeal of Oak Island is not about the treasure itself. It is about the addictive, almost supernatural pull of the almost there. Every generation produces a new group of seekers, armed with better technology and an unshakable belief that they will be the ones to finally solve it. They drill core samples that bring up tiny links of chain or fragments of parchment or strands of human hair, just enough evidence to fuel the obsession for another decade. The island does not give up its secret, it merely offers another clue, another reason to dig deeper and spend more. This legend endures as a stark monument to human obsession, a real-life treasure map where the true cost is not measured in gold, but in the lifetimes and fortunes consumed by the earth, all for a prize that may have been a mirage from the very start. A persistent, low-frequency drone is the entire world for some, while for their neighbors it is absolute silence. This is the mystery of the Taos hum, an acoustic ghost reported by a small percentage of residents in and around Taos, New Mexico. Those who perceive it describe a sound like a distant diesel engine idling, a faint but maddeningly constant vibration that seems to emanate from the very air itself. It is not a loud noise, but its relentless nature makes it impossible to ignore, particularly in the quiet of the night. For these hearers, the hum becomes a source of chronic distress, leading to sleeplessness, headaches, and a deep sense of isolation, especially when no one else in their own home can hear what to them is a deafening presence. The search for a source has been as frustrating as the hum itself. Skeptics often point to a form of selective tinnitus, a condition where the brain generates sound in the absence of an external stimulus. Yet many hearers insist the hum behaves differently, that it changes in intensity or disappears when they move to a different location, suggesting an external origin. Other theories point to mundane culprits like industrial machinery from distant mines, high-pressure gas lines, or even secret military communication systems using extremely low-frequency waves. More speculative ideas involve geological phenomena such as the humming of the Earth itself, perhaps caused by the slow, grinding movement of tectonic plates or the resonation of the planet's magnetic field. Despite numerous official investigations, no single source has ever been identified, and the hum remains officially unexplained. Its haunting power lies not in any dramatic curse or monster, but in its challenge to our shared reality. The Taos hum is a ghost in the machine of our own perception, an invisible phenomenon that carves a tangible and deeply personal line between those who can hear and those who cannot. It forces us to question the reliability of our own senses and to wonder what other subtle signals, what other quiet hauntings might be happening all around us, just below the threshold of our collective awareness. While the Bermuda Triangle haunts the Atlantic, the Pacific Ocean holds its own equally treacherous secret. Off the eastern coast of Japan lies a region of sea so feared that it has earned the name the Devil's Sea or the Dragon's Triangle. This area forms a perfect, chilling parallel to its western counterpart, a place where ships and aircraft have also vanished without a trace, swallowed by the deep. The legends here, however, are rooted not in modern mysteries but in ancient Japanese folklore. For centuries, fishermen told stories of restless dragon gods dwelling in shimmering palaces on the seabed, who would rise in fury to claim any vessel that dared to cross their domain. These tales often spoke of sudden, monstrous waves and inexplicable fogs, attributing the ocean's violence to the whims of these powerful, supernatural beings. The reality of the Dragon's Triangle is shaped by one of the most powerful ocean currents on the planet, the Kuroshio Current. This relentless river within the sea creates chaotic, unpredictable waters, capable of generating colossal rogue waves that can appear without warning and break a ship in two. The seafloor here is a geologically violent zone dotted with active undersea volcanoes. A sudden submarine eruption could not only create a devastating steam explosion, but also trigger a tsunami, wiping a ship from the surface in an instant. Furthermore, just as in the Bermuda Triangle, the seabed is rich in methane hydrates. A massive release of this trapped gas could bubble up to the surface, drastically reducing the water's density and causing a vessel to lose all buoyancy and sink within minutes. When you combine these volatile geological factors with the region's notoriously fierce and fast-forming typhoons, you have a perfect recipe for maritime disaster. The haunting quality of the Devil's Sea is not just its danger, but its cultural reflection. It shows us how societies an ocean apart, facing the same terrifying and unpredictable power of nature, arrived at eerily similar myths. The Japanese saw dragon palaces where Westerners saw alien abductions and electronic fog. Both legends are human attempts to put a face, whether beast or phantom, on the awesome and indifferent force of the natural world. They are ancient and modern expressions of the same primal fear, that the sea does not always give up its dead, and some places on the map are forever marked by a question. Deep in the baked clay of ancient Mesopotamia, the Sumerians etched the stories of their gods, the Anunnaki. These powerful deities were said to determine the fates of both gods and men, their name often translated as those of royal blood or those who from heaven to earth came. For thousands of years, this was understood as pure mythology, the spiritual framework of one of humanity's first civilizations. Then, in the 1970s, a controversial author named Zecharia Sitchin offered a radical new interpretation. He proposed that the Anunnaki were not gods at all, but flesh and blood extraterrestrials from a hypothetical 12th planet in our solar system, which he called Nibiru. According to his theory, this planet travels on a vast, elliptical orbit that brings it near Earth only once every 3,600 years. The Anunnaki came here, Sitchin claimed, because their own world was dying and they needed gold to repair their damaged atmosphere. They established mining operations, but their own workforce rebelled against the difficult labor. The solution was a new, compliant worker. Sitchin interpreted the Sumerian creation myth, the Epic of Atrahasis, not as a spiritual allegory, but as a literal scientific report. He argued that the Anunnaki genetically engineered Homo sapiens by mixing their own alien DNA with that of the primitive hominids already on Earth, creating us as a slave species to work in their gold mine. This, he said, was the true meaning behind the biblical and Sumerian phrase to make man in our image after our likeness. It is a story that directly challenges the foundations of both established science and human history, replacing divine creation and Darwinian evolution with an epic of cosmic intervention and genetic manipulation. Mainstream scholars and scientists overwhelmingly reject Sitchin's ideas. They point out that his translations of Sumerian cuneiform are considered inaccurate and highly speculative by virtually every expert in the field. In the traditional academic view, the Anunnaki were always understood as a pantheon of gods, each governing a fundamental aspect of nature and society, from the sky god Anu to the air god Enlil and the water god Enki. Their complex family dramas and power struggles were the Sumerians' way of explaining the often chaotic and unpredictable forces of their world, from floods and droughts to the rise and fall of kings. There is no archaeological evidence for the planet Nibiru, and its proposed orbit defies our current understanding of celestial mechanics. So why does this modern legend hold such a powerful grip on the imagination? It haunts us because it offers a science fiction origin story that feels strangely plausible in our technological age. It replaces a mysterious, divine creator with a tangible, if vastly superior, biological one. This narrative taps into a deep-seated human anxiety about our own beginnings and our place in the cosmos. Are we the unique and special children of a god or the universe, or are we merely the accidental product of alien biotechnology, created for a purpose we have long since forgotten? The legend of the Anunnaki reframes all of human history as a consequence of that first contact, suggesting that our drive to build civilizations, worship gods, and even mine for gold ourselves might be nothing more than a genetic memory, an echo of our Creator's will. It is a story that turns our entire past into a question mark, leaving us to wonder if the gods we thought we invented were actually just visitors we failed to remember. The chilling isolation of a northern winter can transform more than just the landscape. Among the Algonquian peoples, the deepest fear was not the cold itself, but the monstrous transformation it could trigger in a person's soul. This is the legend of the Wendigo, a being of pure malevolence born from desperation. It begins not with a monster lurking in the woods, but with a human being pushed to the absolute brink. In times of famine, when the snows were deep and the game had vanished, the unthinkable could become a final, horrific option, resorting to cannibalism to survive. This act, this violation of the most sacred taboo, was believed to open a person's spirit to possession. The Wendigo was not just a creature, it was a curse that preyed on the starving, twisting their survival instinct into an eternal, insatiable hunger for human flesh. Once possessed, a person became a physical manifestation of their own sin. They transformed into a gaunt, skeletal giant, so emaciated that its skin was stretched taut over its bones. Its eyes glowed with a feral hunger, and its lips were often described as chewed away, as if it had been gnawing on itself. Some legends say its heart was made of solid ice, a perfect symbol for the cold, inhuman void where its compassion once resided. The Wendigo was forever freezing, yet burned with a feverish desire for more flesh, a hunger that could never be satisfied no matter how many it devoured. It was a monster cursed to eternal consumption, a walking, starving ghost of its former self. This terrifying figure served a profound and vital purpose in Algonquian culture. It was a powerful moral fable, a stark warning against the dangers of greed and selfishness, especially when a community's resources were stretched to the limit. The Wendigo was the ultimate symbol of excess, a creature that took without ever giving, consuming the very community it once belonged to. The legend enforced the importance of sharing and compassion, even in the most dire circumstances, teaching that to give in to that inner darkness was to lose your humanity forever. It was a cautionary tale whispered around winter fires, a reminder that the true monster was not outside the lodge, but the potential for darkness within every human heart. The haunting power of the Wendigo endures because it is so much more than a simple monster story. It is a deeply psychological horror, rooted in the very real, primal fears of starvation, isolation, and the brutal choices survival can demand. It asks a question that still sends a shiver down the spine. How far would you go to live, and what part of yourself would you be willing to sacrifice? The Wendigo is the ghost of that terrible choice, a perpetual warning that some hungers once fed can never be sated. A ghost from the future stands abandoned on the coast of Taiwan. The Sanjai pod houses rise from the earth like a fleet of landed flying saucers, their bright, rounded forms now faded and cracked. This futuristic resort, conceived in the late 1970s, was meant to be a luxury destination, a vision of tomorrow filled with colorful UFO-like domes. But the dream died almost as soon as it was built. By the 1980s, the entire complex was deserted, left to the salt air and creeping vines, a modern ruin frozen in time. With no official explanation, rumors rushed in to fill the silence. Whispers spread of a cursed construction site where a series of fatal accidents claimed the lives of workers. Some said a fatal car crash killed several important investors on the very road leading to the resort, a dark omen that sealed its fate. Others spoke of the land itself being spiritually unsettled, a place where the pod houses disturbed ancient graves, inviting a supernatural backlash that made the buildings uninhabitable. The most chilling tales describe the ruins as actively haunted, with locals reporting ghostly apparitions peering from the broken windows and the sound of phantom parties echoing from the empty halls. The likely truth is far more mundane, yet in its own way just as haunting. The project was probably a victim of financial failure, a combination of skyrocketing construction costs and a loss of investor confidence following a tragic accident. There were also rumors of structural instabilities, the futuristic designs perhaps proving too difficult to execute safely. The developers simply ran out of money and walked away, leaving their vision of the future to be reclaimed by the past. This is why the Sanjay pods haunt us so deeply. They are not ruins from a distant age, but a ghost of a future that never arrived. They stand as a stark, almost painful reminder of how quickly ambition can crumble, and how the most modern and shining dreams can become tomorrow's decaying mysteries, filled with the whispered stories of what might have been. A serpent's heart can hold more love than any human law. In the misty beauty of Hangzhou's West Lake, a legend unfolds that has defined romance and tragedy in Chinese culture for centuries. This is the story of the White Snake, a tale not of monsters, but of a love so profound it challenged the very order of heaven and earth. Bai Suzhen was no ordinary creature. She was a white snake spirit who had cultivated her power for 1,000 years, achieving such wisdom and magic that she could take the form of a beautiful, elegant woman. Alongside her was Xiaoqing, a younger green snake spirit who served as her loyal companion and sister. One rainy day by the lake, Bai Suzhen encountered a gentle and kind-hearted young man named Zhu Ziyan. She lent him her umbrella, a simple act of courtesy that blossomed into a deep and passionate love. They married, and together they opened a medicinal pharmacy where Bai Suzhen used her ancient knowledge to heal the sick, becoming a beloved figure in the community. Their happiness, however, was not destined to last. A Buddhist monk named Pharaohs saw through Bai Suzhen's human disguise. He perceived not a benevolent healer, but a dangerous demon who had violated the natural law by marrying a mortal. Pharaohs, stern and unwavering in his dogma, believed it was his sacred duty to intervene, to save Zhu Ziyan's soul from what he saw as a corrupting influence. He confronted Zhu Ziyan, poisoning the young man's mind with doubt and fear. During the Dragon Boat Festival, a time when spirits are vulnerable, Pharaohs tricked Zhu Ziyan into making his wife drink realga wine. The powerful liquor weakened Bai Suzhen's magic, and for a terrifying moment her serpent form was revealed. The shock killed Zhu Ziyan, but Bai Suzhen's love for him was stronger than any poison. In a breathtaking act of devotion and sacrifice, she braved the perils of the celestial realm to steal a magical herb that could restore life, successfully reviving her husband. Yet even this ultimate proof of her love could not sway Pharaohs. The monk was relentless, eventually capturing Zhu Ziyan and holding him prisoner in the Jinshan temple. What followed was not a petty squabble, but a cataclysmic war for love. Enraged and desperate, Bai Suzhen summoned all her power, commanding the waters of the lake and the armies of the deep to rise up and flood the temple. An epic confrontation between her raw, elemental magic and Pharaohs' rigid spiritual authority. But she was ultimately defeated not by a more powerful spell, but by the very laws of the cosmos she had defied. As her final punishment, Pharaohs used his most powerful magic to trap Bai Suzhen beneath the Leifeng Pagoda, a heavy stone structure meant to imprison her for all eternity. The legend concludes with a thread of hope, however, a promise that one day, when the pagoda eventually fell, their family would be reunited. This story haunts the Chinese imagination not with terror, but with a deep, resonant sorrow. It asks painful questions that have no easy answers. Was Pharaohs a righteous guardian of cosmic order, or a cruel fanatic who destroyed a beautiful love out of sheer intolerance? Was Bai Suzhen's love for a mortal a noble transcendence of her nature, or a foolish rebellion that doomed them all? The legend lives on because it is a mirror to our own world, reflecting the eternal conflict between the heart's wild, authentic desires and the cold, unyielding rules of society and tradition. It is a ghost story of the spirit, a lingering melody of love lost to duty, whose final note has yet to be sung. From the tragic romance of a white serpent to the chilling hunger of the Wendigo, these 35 legends form a tapestry of our deepest fears and most profound hopes. Each story, whether born on a stormy sea or in a silent desert, shares a common thread, our timeless struggle to explain the unexplainable. They are born from our fear of the dark, our search for meaning in a chaotic world, and our enduring fascination with that thin, permeable line that separates the solid ground of history from the misty realms of myth. These tales are far more than simple ghost stories to be told around a fire. They are the very foundations of our cultural imagination. They have shaped our greatest works of art, inspired our most epic literature, and even guided the way we dig into our own past, reminding us that history is not just a list of dates, but a collection of human experiences, mysteries, and longings. These legends haunt us because they are a fundamental part of who we are, echoing the questions we are still asking today. So we leave you with one final thought as you reflect on this journey through cursed tombs and lost cities. Which of these ancient whispers feels the most believable to you? Which legend sends the most genuine shiver down your spine? We would love to hear your thoughts, so please share your answer in the comments below and tell us about the local ghost stories or enduring mysteries from your own part of the world. The conversation is just beginning, and the next great legend might be waiting to be told by